When it comes to Dragon Ball Z Budokai, I really do appreciate the first one. Not only did it use in-engine cutscenes, which, oh man, I really wish more games did, it also was a lot of people's first Dragon Ball Z game just ever. And not only that, a 3D fighter, which now is not very special, but back then it was. And it made me think and want to go back to the showboatiness of it, but while I would love to kind of point out the cutscenes, and maybe I will one day, I wanted to take a stab at the supers, or the ultimates, as they call it in this game. From Goku to Vegeta to Cell to Frieza, they all have a variety of ultimates that are iconic, and more importantly, should be reminiscent of the show. Well, when you go and look at it, there's actually only 14 moves in the game, even though there's more than that in characters. So we won't be seeing the like of Raditz, Nappa, uh, Yamcha. I forgot Yamcha existed. Whoops. Young Gohan, Great Saiyaman makes sense on that one. Android 18 and Android 17, along with Dodoria and Zarbon. But ignoring that, we will see every other character showcase whether their move is cool or not, which is not only what I'm basing this criteria on. This is going to be ordered from least useful slash least good to best move, at least of the ultimates. And we're going to cover from the ability to use the move, how it looks, because hey, this is a Dragon Ball Z fighting game. We're not treating it super seriously. We're looking, do we get nostalgia? Do we feel great about it? How it sounds? You're gonna notice no music on any of this because sound is very important. And probably the greatest one is it just Dragon Ball. It's kind of the very important is it Dragon Ball. You'll notice a lot of the same combos for most of these, but ignoring that, we're gonna get into the worst ultimate, in my opinion, for Dragon Ball Z Budokai 1. I like Gohan as a character, probably my favorite character in all of Dragon Ball. So when I tell you that his ultimate, the Super Kamehameha, is the worst, you know I'm being honest. Now, this has nothing to do with how hard it is to activate, even though it's locked behind Super Saiyan 2, or even just that sounds bad, because it honestly sounds pretty good. It has everything to do with its badassness being removed. Because we know what the Super Kamehameha looks like, or at least a really, really powerful Kamehameha. So when we come out and see that Gohan does a little combo and slams them to the ground and is ready to do a full blast and they dodge. And while it's cool to think that the energy blast was so strong, just like a miss did enough damage to do that, we still don't see the hit. Like, cool, you missed. Congrats, Gohan. You missed, and we're left with a very disappointing cutscene. Now, this one is actually much more of a complicated ultimate. While Gohan's is the worst merely because it doesn't feel good to use, mostly because of the looks, this comes down to it kind of being annoying to pull off, and more importantly, while I think it is a funny ultimate, it's on a character that is not that fun to play, and that's Raccoon. Raccoon has Raccoon Bomber, and honestly, it looks and sounds pretty neat. And hell, I laugh at the fact that once it ends, you see him in his little pose still the whole entire time. Like, it's good in that regard, but it's kind of hard to pull off. And like a bunch of other ultimates, on a character that isn't great. So while it's cool to pull off, it's one of the harder ones to land on a character you're just not playing that much. Now, we're in the territory where I don't think these are bad moves by any consideration. It's just weird things that will keep them a little lower than each other. Because we're talking about Vegeta, which Vegeta has two ultimates along with one other character, but ignoring that, you have to turn Super Saiyan to activate Big Bang Attack, which, don't get me wrong, makes sense. It's iconic that way. But of the combo ultimates, it's the worst one for Vegeta, and you don't need to turn Super Saiyan to do the other one, which it's way easier to do the other one. This is like, why are you picking the hardest way to do an ultimate? And more importantly, it doesn't look better than the other one. It doesn't sound better. I do think it is a clean ultimate, but when it comes down to it, on the character itself, it is the worst option. I really struggled to find one that now goes next because there's quite a few that get bunched up, and I decided to go with Android 19's Life Drain. Not only is it a very standard hit, Android 19 isn't a good character and struggles a lot, and it's just kind of not very flashy. It's funny if you get a little gross with it, but for the most part, it is just almost a box standard ultimate. The only thing that I think is like makes it relevant, it just has other effects with it that I think pushes it a little better. Plus, considering it is the only ultimate for this character and it's not that hard, you're gonna see it a decent amount. Plus, it's a character you're gonna see more often than Raccoon. Whereas earlier I was talking about how Big Bang Attack is kind of pointless in a way, this one does have a point. Hercule Special is something that can happen once you're at high tension, but there's kind of a reason to use it. Is for the most part, Hercule's punches are way easier to connect with, and you only need to start with a right kick with this, meaning that you can go into the ultimate a little bit easier. This is kind of nerfed by the fact you do need to be in high tension, and while I do think this is funny, I think his other ultimate, which we'll talk about later, is a little more funny to my taste. Not only that, it is kind of just, when you double up on ultimates, there's going to be a worse one, which it just happens to be this one. Now we are getting into some attacks I think are very iconic. They're not just funny, they look great, they sound great, and I think they wholly encapsulate what I think Dragon Ball in a fighting game should have. And we've kind of passed the ones that I think are kind of mid or they have problems with it. These are all good ultimates. It's pretty much personal preference how I think they, do well in like relating back in nostalgia reasons. Now, we're gonna start with Piccolo. I understand a lot of people are like, "What? Piccolo is amazing, iconic, even." This has a lot to do with Hellzone being kind of an annoying move to pull off, locked behind fuse with Kami, and at the same time, it doesn't look that great in this game. It is unique. It has a very unique animation setup, but because one, Hell it has to be censored in North American releases, we get Scattershot, which is technically it is seen, but ignoring that, it is a very kind of move, but it is still iconic. And while there's something to like about it, it almost fills every box besides the coolness box. We knew it was going to come here, but I had to pick one that is kind of a single one off because some characters just aren't used that well. But we have Android 16. It made it this high because of the walk, because of the animation, and just everything about it. It isn't a great attack, it's a standard ultimate button press. And more importantly, it just sounds great up until the very end. I think it fulfills almost every box of trying to relate back to the original scene with Hell's Flash. But we do have to bring up that it doesn't say Hell's Flash, it says Thrusters Engage, or it depends where you're at, but ultimately it doesn't say the move, which is why it's lower than some other stuff that we'll talk about. Yes, we are finishing up Hercule here with his other special, Present for You. Now, this is a very funny special. It is on brand for the character, and more importantly, it's not that hard to hit. The only annoyance is that his kicks aren't as good as his punches, meaning that it's not always going to be guaranteed, but ignoring that, does great damage, and more importantly, you can just throw it out there right at the start of the match and get a pretty funny cutscene. I think simpler is sometimes more humorous, at least in my opinion. So when it comes down to it, I think this is just a better ultimate in a lot of cases, and I do spam this in the Hercule mode, a ridiculous amount. You may think I forgot about this character, right? Because a lot of people, if they know about this character and its history and the game, why is this so high up? Why is TN, the one with volleyball fist as his ultimate, this far up? Has everything to do with animation. Everything is a good move. It's decent to pull off. I don't think anybody's really gonna have too much struggle. Once you get used to it, pretty clean, and it just shows love to a series that we don't see. The volleyball fist is something that is locked to Dragon Ball, and it doesn't appear in Z, right? So it is nice to see a move like that in what is primarily a Z focused game. There's very little kind of hints back besides the opening, and we get to see what I think is a lot of cool animation. And while we do see a lot of cutaways, I do think it is charming and campy at the same time. It really does showcase what they had to do to, make it work. I was really struggling with this because we are now at the part where there's a lot of ultimates that are very similar to how I feel about it, but I wanted to cover possibly the worst of these section. They're iconic, they sound good, they feel good, and more importantly, there's something very fun about them, but I'm gonna have to give it to Krillin. Krillin is one pretty famous move creator, has a lot of cool moves, interesting, but Destructo Disc, I hate saying Destructo Disc. The Kianzan is one of the best iconic moves in my opinion. The idea of something that is, so concentrated into a disc that's able to cut through anything, super cool. And the only reason it is where it's at is because it requires unlocked potential, which is really dumb considering it uses it against now. But whatever. Ignoring that, we get to see multiple Destructo Discs. Ugh, and we get to see kind of the whole animation. It sounds good. I There's something really unique about that sound, and I do love it. But it has to be this far down. I'm sorry. Next is high up, not because it's iconic, in fact, because it's almost the opposite. We never see Cell use the Genki Dama or Spirit Bomb. But one, it's a very funny a funny move that kind of makes repeated appearances in the Budokai series on a character that never uses it. He usually has a very funny voice line along with it, and it's a unique animation, usually, in comparison to Goku, who we'll talk about in a little bit. So overall, it's just a very funny way of doing it, and the fact it says only ultimate here is really odd because there's a bunch of other moves you could have gone with for Cell, and seeing one that we never see him use, I think is actually more interesting than if they would have gone with, say, another Death Ball repeat, or even doing something like a Death Beam spam or something along the lines. I do think Spirit Bomb on Cell is a pretty now iconic move due to a game, let alone, the fact that it never appears in other media. This was a battle of the iconics, right? Because whichever one next is only here because of how well they encapsulated the move. And I'm gonna have to put this one to Frieza's Death Ball a little lower than the one I'll talk about next. It has merely to do with the difference in animation work, the sound design, and just how iconic it is, but I will give minus points to Frieza because technically we do see a Death Ball like move in his first form, so the fact he's not able to do it in this game is a little whack. But then again, this is, from Bardock, which at the time wasn't, ignoring that, it is one of those things I'm being very nitpicky because these next two, this one and the next, are so close in what I would rank. And again, I talked about it in the last one with Frieza, but Burning Attack is so iconic and they captured it so well. Yes, you do need to be in Super Saiyan, which is a little whack, but ignoring that, every little thing about this move I think is super well done. One, it sounds amazing. Without the heavy music, it's again the way you get to hear the rapid sound of the arm movement. Plus, on that, every kid did that, right? With Burning Attack, we did a wacky moves with our arms just to do the little ball thing, which is funny because it's not that special of a move, but it's just super iconic. And more importantly, I think it is fully captured well in the animation, which kind of makes me ignore a lot with the move, being that it's a little bit harder to hit. And yeah, it's locked behind Super Saiyan, but it's just on point. This is a Dragon Ball move directly translated, which is all you want really from this. Yes, we're now in the top five. I understand there wasn't that many special moves, so it's not like super special, but this is very important because we have a very, very tough distinction between all of these. A lot of these are very iconic or they're insanely useful in the game, which is why we have to make the tough decision to put Special Beam Cannon lower than the other four. And a lot of people are going to be like, what are you talking about? This merely has to do with the fact Special Beam Cannon is actually kind of annoying to land. Otherwise, it is a fantastic move. Not only does it get the attack increase from transformations because you only need to be in the first form of Piccolo to have it activated, and at the same time, the cutscene itself is very iconic. It looks good. It sounds good. I think it probably has the best attack name, like, yell in the entire game because the Special Beam Cannon comes off insanely strong. It is really, really good. It's just, it's a little harder to hit. And the other moves, in my opinion, have better use cases, or more importantly, have a little bit more that I think kind of extends them a little farther. Number four is Spirit Bomb for Goku. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, why is this high? You are required a transformation, and blah, blah, blah. Spirit Bomb is this high, one, because the animation's on point. Give Me Your Energy is a really good soundbite. It looks good, it sounds good. And at the same time, the requirement is that you are in Kaioken or Genkai Fist times 2, which you can do from key level 2, meaning you can immediately start this off insanely powerful with, you know, just pulling it off because you have enough. That's also not to mention that this does get the damage bonus from the other Kaioken multipliers. The only thing that kind of sucks about this move, in my opinion, is yes, of the last remaining ones, its use is kind of the lowest and it doesn't hit as easy as the other ones we'll talk about. The top three is where I really struggled. No, that's ignoring the fact there's a bunch of pockets I struggled. But ignoring that, I really had a hard time deciding what I think is one of the better moves to decide on. Is it the ease of access that we'll talk about in a little bit? Or is it one that I think actually makes the character funny and also a great strategy in itself? And because, I'm talking about, the future ones as ease of access, I'm talking about Ginyu's body change as number three. This is possibly the best use case move in the entire game, merely because you're able to steal somebody's, health bar and their whole entire moveset and change the entire game around. That's what makes body change all very, very good in this game versus even later games. Because you keep the moveset fully. You can do transformations. You're not going to be like, I'm not used to this body, I can't do it. You're able to do the full scope of the lineup, which is what makes body change really, really good. It is a strategy in itself. Don't get me wrong, it is kind of annoying to hit, but it is also a complete turnaround counterattack type of situation. You're losing, body change. You feel like you want to switch characters, body change. You feel like you just want to use another ultimate in the same match, body change. It really is really, really good. Plus, I think the audio for this is on point. Besides the first line, it's a little muddled. Everything else behind it is just good. I will say that this is one of my favorite moves in the game because it really does have an insane use case. For those of you that have played Dragon Ball Z Budokai 1, you know what ultimates are left. And more importantly, you know the big one that's left. And a lot of people are going to be like, where is it? Well, it's right here. And yes, a lot of people are going to be like, you're putting the Warp Kamehameha this low? At number 2? Are you insane? Yeah, because while it is an easy to hit move, it only takes 2 Kai bars. Insane, by the way. Insane that they did that. It is locked behind Super Saiyan transformation. So why is it this high? Because it is insanely powerful. Not only are you in the highest transformation possible, you're getting all that damage buff to it. It is so easy to hit. It is spammable. You can do so much. If you're at 5 Kai bars, just go punch, punch, kick, kick, energy. In the air, you wasted 2, whatever, you go back, oh, they're still alive, do it again. And guess what? Because you punch, punch, kick, kick, more likely you probably have enough energy to do it again if they somehow live. You, this is an insanely powerful move. And so when a lot of people tell you how good it is and why it should be number 1, you can almost agree with it. So why is it number 2? Well, yeah, this is where we're going to talk about Final Flash. The best move in the game goes to Vegeta. Yes, Vegeta finally won something. Vegeta has what is known as the Final Flash, which it's very confusing to me that Big Bang Attack is locked behind Super Saiyan, but this isn't. But ignoring that, it is just as easy to activate as the Warp Kamehameha, but you don't need to transform to do it. It doesn't use a lot of energy, but you can go into Super Vegeta to get that damage boost. Yes, it's not going to be as strong as the Kamehameha Ultimate, but ignoring the slight lock on that one, this is the easiest move to use. You can load up Vegeta, you have this capsule equipped, and go to town, or you can transform, make it iconic because it sounds great, it feels great, it looks great, and that's the best move in the game for me, at least on the ultimate selection. When it comes to every ultimate, I think Final Flash is the final one. It does everything I ever want from a Dragon Ball move. It makes me nostalgic. It feels great to hit. And at the same time, it's still a good move in the game. And with that, that is all 17 ultimates that could be found in Dragon Ball Z Budokai 1. Now, I do intend on maybe covering the later stuff, but it's a lot more ultimates to get into, so please do show your support by leaving a comment. Was I wrong? And more importantly, what's your favorite ultimate that you can find in Budokai 1? Leave the other series for maybe a later video, but hey, maybe I was completely wrong. Maybe Raccoon Bomber is the best one. Some people have weirder taste than me, or they have better taste. It's up to you to show that.